She looked at me for 3 seconds. Just 3. But there was something about it. A look that broke a silence within me that I wasn't even aware of. That existed, and since that night, I can't pretend anymore that I didn't feel. It wasn't what she said. It was what she couldn't hide, while saying, "The problem isn't that it makes sense. The problem is that it's mine. Boss, she's 49 years old." And the next morning, she acted as if nothing had happened, and I was left wondering if she had made it all up. Or maybe she was just much more scared than if you already stayed. I was trapped in a feeling that had no name and I didn't know if it was real or my imagination. Subscribe to the Another Flame channel right now, because I need to feel your comforting presence here with me. And tell me in the comments, where are you from? Are you watching this right now? It was Friday. It was past 6 in the afternoon and the office. It was almost empty. Only the cold lights on the ceiling remained, the distant noise of the air conditioner, and the two of us, me and... They were sitting at the same table as always, with spreadsheets open. And the coffee is already cold. I had been working at Davidson & Cole for 2 years. I had 25. She was 49 and she was my principal. I've been working on projects for 18 months. I respected her in a way which borders on reverence, not because he was afraid, but because she was competent in a way that made me want to be better every time I entered that room. That Friday, we were putting the final touches on quarterly report. She was focused, her glasses on, tip of nose, fingers sliding across documents with that precision that I had already learned to decipher. When she frowned, something was wrong with the data. When he tapped his finger twice on the table, he was thinking. When she was too quiet, it was because she had found something important. I knew how to read it. After 18 months, I learned. But what happened at 6:47 p.m. that night? That I don't know. I was able to decipher it. She closed the last file, leaned back in her chair and let go of the... He looked slowly, then he looked at me. It wasn't his usual look. That direct, professional, evaluative one. It was a different one. Her gaze slowly descended, as if she were seeing a thing for the first time, even knowing that thing. It had been there for a long time. "You were amazing on this project," she said, quietly, almost intimate. "I needed to tell you this in person." She nodded, turned her eyes back to the table, and began to store your papers. Normal. Efficient. As always. But I could still feel that look on my skin when I got into the elevator. I was still feeling it when I got out. Revolving door. I was still feeling it when the subway closed. The doors, and I realized I hadn't paid attention to which one. The line I had entered it wasn't admiration. It wasn't professional gratitude. It was something else. Thing. And I didn't have the vocabulary to name it yet. All I knew was that for the first time in 2 years, I went home. Thinking about her in a different way. And that detail. Small, silent, absurd. That was the beginning of it all. What I didn't know yet was that she had also gone to home thinking of me. On Saturday morning, I woke up to my cell phone vibrating. It was a work notification, an email from her, sent at 7:32 a.m. with an attachment and a line in the message body. "I found there's an inconsistency. Look into it when you can." Since the first meeting, when she entered the room carrying a coffee and a tablet, without haste or anxiety, while everything, the world around her, tried to seem more important. She didn't need to appear as nothing. She simply was. She had dark hair with silver strands at the temples that he didn't hide it. A deep, calm voice that held your attention without needing volume. Hands that gestured precisely. never exaggerated. And a way to pause before answering that. He had taught me, unintentionally, that thinking before speaking was a form of respect. I admired her. I always knew that. But there was a difference between admiring someone and noticing them. Suddenly, like the afternoon light streaming through the side window, left side of the meeting room, and lands exactly at the angle from her neck when she tilts her head to read something. I hadn't noticed that before Friday. Or perhaps I noticed without realizing it. On Sunday, I went to the market and, unintentionally, stopped at the section of teas. She always drank Earl Grey on cold afternoons. I knew this because every time the temperature dropped I saw that specific cup, beige with a gray stripe in her table. I stopped there in the market aisle, looking at the tea boxes as if something had been lost. I bought Earl Grey. I don't know why. On Monday morning, I arrived earlier than I needed to. I sat down at my desk and opened her email from Saturday. I read it. I responded. I was professional, clear, and objective. But when I heard the elevator open at 8:52 a.m. and recognized the sound of her footsteps in the hallway, that firm step, rhythmic, never in a hurry, my heart did something that, it wasn't exactly a jump. It was more like a recognition. As if something inside me was saying, she's arrived. Now the day truly begins. And I didn't understand what to do with that. There's something nobody tells you about working near someone who bothers you. You learn to divide your attention in a way that seems almost supernatural. Half of you, it's in the task, in the data, in the spreadsheet, in the presentation. The other half is in a state of constant alert, capturing all. The way she enters a room changes the temperature of the atmosphere. It's not an exaggeration. It's just that when Diana is present, things become clearer, more urgent, more real. That week, I started paying attention to things that before they passed by unnoticed. How she held the cup with both hands when she was thinking, not by the handle, but encompassing the entire ceramic piece, as if needing to feel the warmth being distributed. As she always did, she waited for everyone to finish speaking before, to begin with. Even if what the other person was saying, it was irrelevant. She waited, with attentive eyes and without impatience. Like when she agreed with something I said, he tilted his head slightly and made a low, almost humming sound. Inaudible, before any verbal response. It was as if agreeing with something she felt before verbalizing it. I was cataloging her. And I knew that was dangerous. One Wednesday afternoon, we worked together in a smaller room. Just the two of us, adjusting the slides for a presentation that she was going to do it on Friday for the executives. She pulled out a chair. Move closer to me so I can see the screen better. Our arms. They were about 15 centimeters apart. 15 centimeters. I could feel the heat coming from there. Or I imagined it. I don't know anymore. To distinguish clearly what was real and what I was imagining. Building it inside my head very carefully, and with little care. Courage. She pointed to something on the screen and her finger brushed close to it. My fist. It didn't touch. It passed close. And I held my breath. In such a subtle way that I would have been proud in any case. Another circumstance. This font is too small. The people at the back of the room. You won't see it, she said. Is it increasing? I asked. It increases. And more frightening than the question was the silence that it came before the answer. It was on a Thursday 3 weeks after the Friday glance. We were in a meeting with 5 other team members. She was presenting. I was at the side of the table with my laptop open, noting points that she needed me to follow up on. At some point, she made a reference to an analysis of The market I had prepared. He called my name in the middle. From the phrase, as Sophia mapped out very well here. And then, he looked at me. The quick glance of someone who just wants to confirm that the person is paying attention. But it lasted a second longer than it should have. 1 second. Invisible to everyone else. Loud and screaming to me. After the meeting, as people were leaving, he came over to my chair while I was closing my laptop. He lowered his voice, not because what he was about to say was secret, but because it was a habit of hers when she talked about something that I considered it important. Did you notice the moment when Thomas tried to question the methodology? I understand, I said. You were quiet, but your attitude changed. She paused. Was it intentional? But I sat there for another 30 seconds or so, processing the fact that she had noticed my posture. She had been paying attention to me with a level of detail that I had reserved for her, and that I assumed was unilateral. In the bathroom, I looked at my own face in the mirror and I tried to be honest with myself. Not completely honest, only partially. Enough to admit that it wasn't. It was a shared admiration that I felt. That the problem wasn't her. That's what happened to me when she was near. I called my friend Jess that night. I didn't tell her anything. Straight to the point. I asked that kind of veiled question that people... They do this when they want to talk about something without saying its name. Have you ever found yourself noticing someone in a way that you don't normally notice? What does it mean? I asked. Jess laughed. Every day of my life. That wasn't what I wanted to hear because that was exactly what I needed to hear. On Friday, I arrived at the office and found a note. Pasted on my monitor. Handwritten. In her own handwriting. Which I had recognized for so long. Meeting at 2 p.m. Come. With questions. From the account we were managing with a new client who... It required a level of attention that went beyond what the team... She was used to it. Diana presented the scope. Then, he looked around the table and said he needed someone to work directly with her in the development of initial strategy. Sophia. She said my name without hesitation. Are you in? But there was something in the way she said it. Direct without embellishment, like someone who already knows the answer, but it gives the dignity of choice, which made me feel seen from. A method that wasn't just professional. Top, I said. And then the small, casual, devastating thing happened. She smiled. Not the executive smile. The other one. The smaller one. What sometimes appeared when something surprised her. A pleasing shape, the corners of the lips rising slightly. Furthermore, the eyes are slightly softer. It lasted 2 seconds, but I took those 2 seconds home with me. In the weeks that followed, we worked together almost every day. Sometimes we stayed up late. We asked. Thai food. She preferred pad Thai. I would order the green curry, and we would eat it at our work desks, while we debated the critical points of the strategy. I learned that she drank her coffee without sugar, but she put it in her mouth. Honey and tea. Who would remain in absolute silence when he was? I was stuck in a problem and didn't want to be interrupted, and I learned to respect that silence with almost perfect precision. Instinctive. That when she called her son, she was divorced. I knew that from hallway conversations. Her voice changed. Completely. It became softer, lighter, as if a layer would fall off. I was learning her versions. And at no point during all of this was I able to convince myself. The same idea that it was just camaraderie. That it was just respect. That it was pure admiration. Because there was one night, it was Wednesday past 9 o'clock, in which she was rereading a document with that total concentration, and I was looking at her without. She managed to stop, and suddenly she looked up as if if it made sense. He caught me staring. I didn't swerve fast enough. She said nothing. She turned her eyes back to the document. But I swear I saw for a fraction of a second something in her expression was not indifference. And that's exactly what kept me from sleeping that night. There is a type of tension that doesn't need words to express it. To exist. That which lives in small gestures, in long pauses. In the averted glances, with surgical precision that was too much for being casual. We entered this territory without warning. Or perhaps we already did. We had been there longer than I wanted to admit. What changed was the silence between us. It became more dense. Before the silence was neutral, the silence of two people working together, comfortable in each other's presence. Now it had texture, it had weight, it had the kind of load that you feel it in your throat when you're about to say something, which cannot be denied. One Tuesday afternoon, we were sitting facing each other. To another one with documents between us. She reads something. Did. He jotted down a note, looked up and caught me staring. This time, neither of them immediately swerved. It lasted about 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then she lowered her gaze back to the paper as if had decided something silently. And I did the same. Not a word. But my heart was beating in a way that wasn't normal. And I knew it with that physical, bodily certainty. That precedes any rationalization, that it made sense. The problem with Diana was that she was restrained from a form that I couldn't fully decipher. She didn't reveal it. She processed it internally and handed it over to the world was only what he decided to deliver. It was one of the things that I admired her the most. And she was one of the ones who made me feel the most crazy because I couldn't read what she wasn't showing me. On a Friday, when we left the office at the same time, whether by accident or not, I'll never know, we hope. The elevator was side by side. She had her coat in her arm. Me with my bag on my shoulder. 20 centimeters between us. The elevator was late. It was a good week, she said. It was, I agreed. The elevator opened. We got in. The floors went down. None. She said nothing more about the two of them. But when the doors opened in the lobby and she turned to before I left, there was something in her expression quick, almost imperceptible, which looked like someone's expression who was about to say something and chose not to. Have a good weekend, Sophia. The office. It was completely empty. Not even the cleaning staff were there. Just arrived. Just the two of us, the light from my desk and the glow from the screens. We were reviewing the final version of a document that it needed to be delivered the following morning. The tiredness was of that specific type that lets its guard down when there is no longer enough energy to keep the filter running full. She had her chair turned slightly towards me, her leg crossed, the cold teacup on the table, and there was a point in document a section that I had written entirely, which she read silently, then reread, and then just stared at, without turning the page. You write in a way that always takes me by surprise, she said, not to me, almost, more to herself. I didn't answer immediately. I waited. She looked up, and there was something there, that thing. Rare, something I had only seen fragments of before, an opening, as if she had downloaded something she normally kept. Erected. Sophia, she began, and I felt it, in my chest, in that region between the sternum and the tightness in the throat when something important is about to happen. It was happening. I felt that what was coming was real, that I was going to say something that would change the atmosphere between us. My phone vibrated. A silly notification. A message from Jess asking if I wanted to have dinner on Saturday. I didn't touch my phone, but the moment vanished. Like glass, thin, silent, but irreparable. Diana blinked. She looked at the document. When she looked back, for me, she was the same old Diana, composed, reserved, smiling, live. Nothing, she said. I was just thinking out loud. But I hadn't said anything yet. And now I wasn't going to say it. I went to the bathroom so I wouldn't have to keep sitting there, pretending to be okay while trying to reconstruct the 2 seconds before the phone vibrates, the beginning. From that phrase, the inflection of my name, the opening in. Her eyes. When I returned, she was ready to leave. Send the file by 10 in the morning, she said. Normal. Efficient. The director. I'm in charge, I said. The employee. And it was so absurd, the distance between what had been about to happen and what was happening now. I felt like laughing. But I didn't. I just stayed there, sitting, with the document open. And a feeling that I've lost something. And I don't even know if it's true. It existed. It happened on a Monday. And like all breakups, it wasn't dramatic though. It was small, necessary, and it hurt. That's exactly why. I was called into her office in the morning. She was standing, with his back to the door, looking out the window that overlooked the building across the street. When I went in, she turned around with that posture, shoulders aligned, jaw firm, that I learned to recognize it as the way she used to go. To say something that I didn't mean to say. Sit down, she said. I sat down. The client asked a member of the team to present the partial results on Wednesday. In person. In Chicago. I paused. Okay, I'll get it ready. He was exactly the type of professional decision that she made all the time. But I knew with that bone-deep certainty that doesn't need of proof, which was not about the cost of the ticket. Understood, I said, and I stood up. I went to the door, then without planning, without rehearsing, I'll come. Diana. But because there was many true things in sequence and none of them, he was a professional. She was quiet for a long second. Then, it wasn't. Nothing you did, Sophia. Except that something had changed in that room, and I didn't know if it's possible to undo it. On Wednesday, while she was in Chicago, I worked, normally. I replied to emails. I participated in meetings. Smile at the right times. But the office had an absence in its form, in its smell. With the wrong silence in the wrong place. She came back on Thursday. She kept passing by my desk. A nod. Professional. Correct. And I realized, with that pain that has no location, she needs to, perhaps she had decided. And that the decision. It wasn't about me. It was about her. And about what she couldn't allow herself to experience. There's something specific about losing something that was never lost. Named. You can't explain it to anyone. Because there is no history. There is no event. There is no break with the date marked. There is only a before and an after, separated by a door. Closed down, and nobody even knows it existed. I spent 2 weeks operating on autopilot. I would wake up, coffee, subway, office, work, subway, home, routine, kept my body moving while some part of me remained still in that hallway, leaning against the wall, processing a nod. Our work dynamic has returned to the previous pattern. Professional, efficient, without long afternoons, without meals. Ty, without the heavy silences. She distributed tasks via email. She responded to what I sent with objectivity. In team meetings, He treated me exactly how he treated everyone else, with respect and distance, calibrated. And that was what hurt the most. Not the coldness. The calibration. The evident care with which she had adjusted the distance to the exact point of safety. I called Jess on a Thursday night. I finally said something close to the truth. "I'm interested in someone who can't," I said. "Why can't I?" Jess asked. I paused for a long time. "Because it's complicated." That doesn't answer anything. People walking their dogs, children running, couples holding hands, and I tried, honestly, to understand That's what I was waiting for. There was no clear answer. Only the persistent feeling of that there was something unfinished. An interrupted sentence. 1. The moment that was left unfinished. One night, I accidentally passed by the tea section of the supermarket. Again, I stood in front of the Earl Grey box for a ridiculous amount of time. Then I picked it up, put it in the cart, and I didn't think about it anymore. That night, I made tea. I sat by the window with my cup, and I asked myself for the first time with complete clarity, what if? Am I completely wrong? What if there's nothing there? What if there is one? It's been 6 weeks since things got this way when the universe, with its own peculiar and cruel sense of humor, put an event on the calendar that neither of them asked for, the company's annual dinner. I received the invitation email on a Tuesday. An event on the rooftop. From a hotel in Midtown, semi-formal dress code, presents. Strongly encouraged, which is the corporate euphemism for mandatory. A whole day passed before I accepted the invitation, not because she didn't want to go, because she knew she would be there. In the week leading up to the event, I started noticing things. In a meeting on Monday, Diana made a reference to this is a point from an analysis I had sent weeks earlier. Something specific, detailed that indicated that she had. I reread the material after it was submitted. You don't reread what? It doesn't matter. On Wednesday, while walking down the hallway, she was on the phone. When he saw me, he paused for half a second before to continue. It was nothing. It was everything. On Thursday, an email. Subject: Content review. See Sophia. Just another routine assignment, but there was a phrase in the body of the email, a casual parenthesis, which said, "You always have an angle that I hadn't thought of." I printed the email. I don't know why. I folded it and put it in the same place where the note she had left was. My monitor weeks ago. I was keeping fragments of her. I knew it was a problem. I couldn't stop. On Thursday night before dinner, I chose what I would wear, with a level of attention that I normally reserve for important presentations. A navy blue dress that Jess gave it to me once because it matched my skin tone and I never used to wear them. I put them on. I looked in the mirror. I took them off. I put them on again. Again. I went to bed at 11 and stared at the ceiling until midnight. It wasn't nervousness about the event. It was a specific type of anticipation that lives in the place where fear and hope are. The same thing, where you want something to happen and when, at the same time, he is so afraid that it will happen that I would almost prefer that it weren't so. I slept. I woke up at 6. Coffee. Shower. I took the Earl Grey that was in the cupboard and made a cup. I sat by the window with her. And I thought, tonight is going to be different. I still didn't know if different was a good thing or scary, but I was sure I wasn't going to be neutral. The rooftop was beautiful in the way that expensive things are beautiful. Efficiently and without surprises. Warm lights, Manhattan. In the background, tables with white flowers, well-dressed people holding glasses. I arrived too early. I stayed near the bar for a while. 15 minutes pretending to drink slowly. She arrived at 8:20. I knew before I knew. Judging by the way the conversation around her changed tone when she entered through the natural opening that people make without. To perceive when someone with presence occupies a space. She was dressed in black. Her hair was tied up with a few strands loose. Temples. The silver is more visible than in the office, without the cool ceiling lights. She met my gaze before I got close. It wasn't the look of a meeting. It was the other one. "You came," she said when she reached me. As if there had been any chance that I wouldn't come. "I came," I said. We remained silent for a second that lasted far too long. Then she said, "Are you okay?" Two places where the sound seemed more distant. "In what way?" I asked, quietly, almost breathless. She looked me straight in the eye then, with that rare openness that I had seen fragments of for months, but the whole thing. This time, without the top layer. "It's difficult," she said, "working so close to someone that you..." I needed distance, Sophia. Not because you did anything wrong, but because I needed to understand what was happening to me before it stopped. Again, she looked at the glass. I'm not an impulsive person. It was the silence that follows when two people have just stopped, pretending at the same time. Dense, with sharp edges. "I don't know what to do with this," she said. "Honestly. It just happened." The glass was being finished, the conversation continued, the steps. Taking it outside without a conscious decision from either of them. The night was cold for September, the kind of cold that Nova York does this when it decides that summer is over and it's not going to negotiate more. We stayed on the sidewalk in front of the hotel. The traffic. In the background, yellow taxis pass by, the city comes alive. Indifferent to what was happening between us. She had her arms crossed slightly. Not of defense, but from the cold. And there was something about the way she was. Standing there, on that sidewalk, without the armor of the office. Without the position, without the title, that made her seem simply a woman, with doubt, with fear, with something that I didn't know what to name. Just like me. "I'll take a taxi," she said, but she didn't raise her hand to call no one. "Okay," I said. But I didn't move either. She looked at me for a long time, with that Friday look. It was at night, weeks ago that it all began, but more. Closed now. No table between us, no documents, no pretext. "I don't know where this is going," she said, honest as she had been. "I've been up there. I have a life, responsibilities, one position. And you work with me. I know all of that," I said. "And yet you're still here." It didn't have the weight of something repressed. It didn't have the tension of something unspoken. It was cleaner, more open, the kind of silence that exists after the truth has been told and the air is still there, adjusting. She uncrossed her arms. She took a step towards me. Not much. Just one. But it was the most deliberate step I took. I've seen someone give it. And then she did something I didn't expect. She took my hand, not romantically, with fingers intertwined. The way you take someone's hand when they're about to get through something difficult. With firmness, brevity, presence. It stayed like that for 3 seconds. Then he let go. He hailed a taxi with his hand raised. "Sleep well, Sophia," she said, with that voice, the deep one. The calm one. The one that held attention without needing volume. "You too, Diana." The September chill settling into my coat. The city continued on. unaware that something was happening. Changed. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't a promise. It wasn't a resolution. None. It was a hand. For 3 seconds. On the cold of a sidewalk. In September, and it was more than I had ever had. And less than I wanted. And just enough to know that it didn't have. Finished. Sometimes, the beginning of something looks a lot like the end. From another perspective. And sometimes, 3 seconds of truth weigh more than weeks of careful silence. She held me. For 3 seconds. And I'm still feeling it. If this story touched a part of you, give it a thumbs up. Like now, that helps a lot. Subscribe to the Another Flame channel now if he hasn't done that yet. Because there are many more stories like that, waiting for you here. And if you were left wondering what happens next, Diana decides when Monday arrives and they need to. Sitting in the same room as if that sidewalk didn't exist. Existed. The next video starts right there. Click now. You won't want to miss what she says. When the door closes and there's no one else around.